My wife and I work for the same marketing firm. Lucy is an account ambassador. Don't ask what that is. Still don't know what her job is other than making out with clients. I'm Mark, and I lead the IT team. Things have been going well for us. We are employed, happy, have finished renovating our dilapidated house, and have two wonderful children, 13-year-old Emma and 11-year-old Daniel. We live close to our families and have a close-knit group of friends. Both of us are in our 30s and we fit together, although in looks she wins out. She's 5'7" with long blonde hair and beautiful blue eyes. Lucy claims her family lives in Sweden and she looks Scandinavian slim. She is bright and lively and never seems to stand still. I am 7.5 centimeters taller with sand-colored hair. I prefer endurance sports like cycling and running, so I have a slim build. I am physically fit, but not in an ostentatious athletic way. I was surprised when I was invited for a long weekend on a private island owned by one of our firm's clients. Jack Edwards, our CEO, explained that he and his wife Margaret were going along with several directors and their partners. Lucy was also invited as she was the client's primary contact. It sounded like I was attending for the sake of crunching the numbers, but hey, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Jack explained that the client was very wealthy and easily our firm's largest client, that we would be leaving early Friday morning and returning Monday on a private charter, and everything would be provided for us. Lucy knew everything when I mentioned it on the way home. She had been working with the client for a few months now, seemed very impressed, and was looking forward to the free weekend. I asked her about the weekend, but she didn't seem to know much, so I asked her about the client. Lucy explained that his name was William Fellows and said he was in his early 40s, good-looking, exuded confidence, and had inherited a family fortune. She seemed a bit charmed, describing him as bossy and reserved, among other things. Great, I thought to myself. He sounds like an arrogant asshole, but until the weekend I'll probably keep that observation to myself. 2 weeks later, on a Friday morning, we found ourselves on a private charter plane. I have to say I was impressed. If it owned the island, it must be absolutely equipped. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it seemed huge, maybe 5 miles long and a couple wide from what we saw coming in for landing. It looked like a 5-star resort, with the main buildings set behind a white sandy beach that formed a perfect crescent. Lucy was beyond thrilled, and the rest of us kept up with her. We were shown to our rooms and then went to our host's house for lunch on the veranda overlooking the bay. I wanted to hate him, but William seemed like a reasonable guy. Lucy even downplayed his looks. He looked like George Clooney. He thanked us for coming and told us to make ourselves at home. We chatted with the other 3 couples from our firm and met a stunning brunette named Charlotte, who I assumed was William's companion for the weekend. Aside from the service staff, the only other guy there not introduced to us looked like a security guard and was hanging around in the background. I wondered what kind of enemies William had that even on a desert island he still needed a guard. William greeted Lucy like an old friend, and they felt very comfortable in each other's company. She and the others seemed to obey most of what he said. I supposed this was natural, as he was an unusually generous host and their most valued customer. We had a wonderful afternoon, snorkeling, kayaking, and generally lazing around in the bay. Complimentary drinks and food were constantly offered. Later, we enjoyed an evening dinner with the rest of the group. The atmosphere was friendly and relaxed, and we socialized in small groups. Charlotte came up to us and introduced herself. She was sweet and talked about growing up in England. I got the impression that she was from a well-to-do family, but seemed genuinely nice. I wondered if she was a model or maybe she didn't need to work. To my surprise, she was quite flirtatious with me, even in Lucy's presence. I managed to politely dodge her by simply writing it off as being overly friendly. Constant care, no children, time to relax, and an idyllic location, the perfect setting for a romantic night. Lucy was particularly loving. Our lovemaking was intense, and she repeatedly professed her love to me. It was the best night I'd had in a long time. Perhaps there was something to this Love Island idea after all. I was hoping for a repeat the next morning, but Lucy had a quick shower and was ready for breakfast. Eventually, I managed to get my ass out of bed and catch up with her while she was talking to Jack and William. I wondered if it was work-related since both Jack and Lucy looked a little tense. Perhaps William was making out and using the weekend to push them into something work-related. When I approached, the conversation broke off, and after a quick bite to eat, we continued to enjoy another beautiful day by the pool with the rest of the group. On Saturday, we went out to dinner, and I noticed that Lucy had become more dressed up. She looked stunning in her red satin evening dress and stiletto shoes. After dinner, William asked if we could spare a few minutes. We agreed and followed him into his office, followed by a security guard. William sat down in a high-backed leather chair, and I sat on the couch across from him with Lucy, noting that she sat a little farther away from me. After a long pause, William spoke. "I have a proposition for you, Mark, and it's a personal one." "Good," I answered brilliantly, even though I was completely stunned. William continued. "I've had the pleasure of working with Lucy and getting to know her better over the last few months, and it's been an absolute pleasure. We get on fantastically well and have built a wonderful relationship." He paused, perhaps waiting for my reaction, but I had no idea what he was getting at, although the word relationship made me feel a little uneasy. He casually continued, "As a result, I have a suggestion. I'd like to spend the rest of the weekend with Lucy. Of course, I would be happy to compensate for the time she would have to spend with you, and for that purpose, I intend to transfer £100,000 into your joint account." I laughed. It was meant to be a joke, and I couldn't resist teasing. "Well, William, you seem to be a bit stingy. Didn't Robert Redford offer more than £1 million for Demi Moore? No one else laughed." William continued, "As with any business, I'm prepared to haggle about the price to get what I want. Besides, Charlotte will be in a quandary, and I would be delighted if you would agree to entertain her." I turned to Lucy, expecting her to smile, but she only looked concerned. "This isn't a joke, Mark. William has suggested that I join him, and I think we should seriously consider the offer." I wanted to punch him, but when I looked back, the guard was already closer. I wondered how he managed it. I didn't even see him move. William continued to speak. "I assure you, your wife is in full support of this idea. Where is the harm in that? We will all have a great time, and you will receive a substantial amount of money." I turned to Lucy. "Maybe the difference in price is because Demi Moore didn't want it for that amount of money?" Lucy flinched at this remark, but she had the good sense not to say anything back. I tried desperately to think, but had to concentrate on my breathing, which was becoming increasingly labored. I looked at the guard. His demeanor had completely changed. He looked wary and focused on my movements, and for good reason, as I really wanted to punch William in his smarmy face. "What's your name? Ex-military? From the looks of you, does he do this shit a lot?" "Shane, sir, and I can't comment on that. And if I attacked your asshole of a boss, I guess you could kill me with your bare hands or something." Shane smiled. "Maybe just keep you from doing that deed, sir." Turning to William, I said, "It's a good thing you brought him, or I would have beat the shit out of you." William didn't seem the least bit concerned. "Let's not be hasty, Mark. A lot depends on it." Lucy spoke next. "Mark, think about it. It's only a couple of days, and the money will change our lives forever." I was devastated. She had clearly planned and wanted it. "Lucy, tell me, darling, did the offer of money come after you two decided to do this?" Receiving no answer, I continued. "I think Charlotte was also offered to sweeten the offer. Who is she? A prostitute?" To this, William replied, "Charlotte is a personal friend of mine. Besides being rich, she is a very high-class escort and only takes contracts that interest her. Rest assured, you will experience something out of the ordinary with her. I guess that makes prostitutes of them both." Again, a flinch on Lucy's part, but no softening words. "Well, William, you can shove your money up your pouty ass." It was at this point that Lucy spoke up and showed her true colors. "This is my body, and I want to do it. It's just sex, and we'll both have fun exploring it with others. William and I like each other, but nothing more than that. It doesn't change our love for each other. I'm sure you and Charlotte will have a good time, too." I was stunned by her words that were slowly reaching me. The difference, my dear wife, is that I don't want anyone else. And this is much more than you suggest. This is betrayal and conspiracy behind my back. I can never trust you again, and if you are willing to do it once, why won't you do it again? Lucy replied quickly. You're overreacting. I told you about it, so it's not a conspiracy or a secret, and I'm being completely truthful. This will happen, and then I will return, becoming completely yours. If you love me, you will allow me just this one thing. Think of what we can do with the money. Vacations with the kids, everything. Don't you dare use our children as an excuse. We don't need the money, and don't think I'll take you back. Your honesty will only work if we agree on something together, and the only person you agree on something with is this pompous asshole right here. The money is just an excuse. You want and plan to do it. I think the money and Charlotte are just because you didn't think I'd do it. Well, you're right. Even with the money, I still don't agree. Lucy continued. You're right. I want to do it. I want to experience something different, something new. And I'm attracted to William, but it shouldn't hurt us. I don't want to cheat. And you think that's better? You've already made your choice, even dressed up for him? Don't fight it, baby. You won't like the consequences. What the hell do you mean? Well, you're not going to come out of this with good consequences. If you fight it or go for a divorce, you'll lose everything, your house and your kids, even your job will be in jeopardy, and there's no need for that. So just accept it. Things will be much easier. I'll see you tomorrow, and remember, I love you and only you. I needed to leave. Breathing was becoming a real problem, and if I stayed, I would lose it. I stood up feeling wobbly and staggered towards the door. I heard Lucy calling my name, but kept walking. As I crossed the hall, Charlotte came up to me and gave me a hug, telling me everything was going to be okay. I turned to her. What are you, a fucking consolation prize? She walked away with her head held high. I kept walking, eventually getting outside and walking halfway across the yard, but I wasn't feeling very good. I heard footsteps behind me and was disappointed to see that it was Shane and not Lucy. Look, Shane, you just need to back off. And I'd love to, but I need to make sure you don't do anything stupid. Like what? Do you have any ideas? Because I don't. Mark, you don't look too smart. Just sit against the wall, pull your knees up, and concentrate on taking long, slow breaths. I felt weakened, and I didn't have the energy to argue. It seemed like it took forever, but it was probably only a few minutes before I calmed down. I noticed Shane sitting next to me. Thanks, I guess. I don't know what it was. Probably an anxiety or panic attack. You were pretty pale, but you look more pink now. So, Shane, speaking of stupid ideas, is there any way out of this hole? Shane replied seriously. There's no way off this island today. There are no boats. The plane and pilot are gone for another charter. You might be able to radio for help, but an unfaithful wife is hardly an emergency. I'm glad you think she's unfaithful. She doesn't seem to realize it, and I was beginning to doubt myself. What the hell am I supposed to do? Because of you, I can't even beat the shit out of him. Yeah, sorry about that. I'd like to step aside, but I'll never get a job again. After a bit of silence, Shane continued. Yeah. Look, think about what you're going to do and make a plan. Whatever you need to do can wait until Monday. It's like in the army. Form a plan, sit tight, and don't alert them to what you're going to do. The problem is, I have no idea what I'm going to do. They seem to have foreseen everything, and I'm going to have to sit around and suffer tomorrow and Monday while you babysit me. After a long pause, Shane suggested, There's a freighter coming in early Monday morning. You can get on it if you want to avoid the plane with everyone else going home. You can't be stopped. No one, including me, will want to be charged with kidnapping or imprisonment. I could even go with you. This contract loses its appeal. I don't like being on the wrong side, even if it pays well. Okay, that'll help. I just need to get through tomorrow. Tell you what, why don't we go for a hike around the island tomorrow morning to take your mind off all this nonsense? Besides, you should think about Charlotte. She's a wonderful girl, and you seem to have nothing to lose. You can sleep in one of the booths tonight if you don't want to go back. No, I think our room is empty. I'll go back there, you never know. She might change her mind. And she didn't change her mind, of course, but surprisingly, I fell asleep, I think, from exhaustion. The next morning, I changed into my gym uniform and hurried down the stairs, hoping to avoid everyone and go on a date with Shane. No such luck. Barely as I entered the dining hall, there was silence. I looked around for something quick to eat and grabbed some fruit. There was a murmur of conversation. I heard comments about, "It's okay, it's no big deal, and she'll be back." Then CFO John Cousins and his wife walked up. "Look, Mark, we've all been through this. Just let it happen. It's nothing personal. He dates other wives, but then he moves on, and he's very generous." When he said that, I saw his wife's neck turn red. At that moment, Lucy and William appeared. She looked absolutely pleased with herself. I would say radiant if I had to describe it. At least she was until she noticed me. Her smile faded. She let go of the asshole's hand and came over to kiss or hug me. I pulled her back at arm's length and looked around. Jesus, I thought. What a fucking idiot. Everyone knew what was going to happen before the weekend even started. What an absolute fool I'd been. I went to the exit. Lucy's talking. "Please stay, Mark. We can socialize with the group and have another good day together." I looked around, all eyes were on me, some in anticipation, others clearly amused by the scene. "No, he paid for you and he can keep you. But before I go, I have something to say to the group. I believe this weekend has been planned for quite some time and you all knew about it, so it's only fair that you all hear what I have to say." Everyone in the group looked at each other dumbfounded, glancing nervously at each other. "Jack and Margaret, I would never have come this weekend if you hadn't been here. It never occurred to me that you would participate in something so nefarious. You know and approve of what he's doing like some kind of sick voyeur fan club. I hope you enjoyed keeping me blind." I noticed them all start to move awkwardly. This was clearly not their intention. "I actually thought we were friends, and making me feel at home so they could set things up was a nice touch. And you're wrong, Bill. This is very personal, so thank you for your part in destroying my marriage. The fact that they are willing to use leverage on my children is frankly disgusting. I don't let anyone threaten my children." Lucy jumped in. "You're overreacting. It was just sex, a one-time adventure, and it doesn't affect us. I told you I love—" I interrupted. "Ooh, we're hearing the first phase of the defense. That it's no big deal. I know you were planning on how I would react as Captain Fool, so let's see what you thought." I'd say phase A is this. We stay here and you get me used to what happened. Try to normalize things before we go home. Combine that with the fact that you and your friends have taken this as something serious. They've already started this thread on your behalf. No doubt you're thinking that I shouldn't overreact, get snippy, or act childish. I should grow up. After all, it's just my ego and pride. Sure, you know it won't work, but it's all part of the softening process. So, phase B. After the weekend, you let me possess you. We'll have sex, lots of sex, maybe try something new. We'll capitalize on your connection and become better than ever. I bet you even discussed the need to seduce me. After all, darling, you'd better not let my feelings of loss linger too long." Lucy glanced nervously at William. That comment seemed to hit the mark. "What's more, we'll have the money he offered for you. We'll be able to spend the money you earned from prostitution on the kids' trip to Disneyland and meeting Mickey." At those words, quite a few of them flinched. "If we're still fighting, phase B kicks in. You already planted that seed last night. If I really love you, I have to let you have it. For 15 years, you have been a wonderful wife, and this is just one night for you. Yes, this may begin to weaken my resolve, but that's what I get after 15 years of devotion to you if I'm treated like crap. You knew I'd never agree, and you jumped on me showing a complete lack of respect, so this plan isn't going to work. Now you're a little concerned. Maybe you should give me some time to cool off. In a week or two, you'll find me drowning my sorrows in a bar somewhere, and then you'll apologize. This is phase D. You're actually sorry for all of this. You had no idea it would hurt me so much, and you never would have done it if you had known. You love me, begging me, crying and everything. I have to admit you have a chance. But then the way you just walked hand in hand with him in front of everyone and looked so delighted with yourself, it confirmed to me that there really is no guilt or regret, just contempt and a desire to humiliate me. Phase G won't work for you. That's why you may finally need a backup plan. Phase D, threats. You'll take all the money, the house, and you'll sick the kids on me. You've already suggested that I might lose my job. William will pay to get you the best lawyers. I'll end up sad, poor, and alone. You might even threaten to move in with him and live happily ever after with our children." William's head popped up so fast I almost laughed. "Oh dear, it sounds like your lover doesn't really want your kids, baby." Lucy was finally able to find her voice. "It's really not that big a problem," she began. "Why don't we just relax and give ourselves time to think?" "This is phase A, Lucy. We've been through this before," I said flatly. "So why don't we save everyone some time and get to the bottom line? That's what I was thinking about last night, and my conclusion is that everyone, including the kids, would be better off if we divorced. It's much healthier than living in an unhappy home. After all, you can't be happy if you're doing this crap, and I'm certainly not happy. You can try to forbid me from seeing my kids, but you know I'm a good father, and it's good for them, and they're old enough to understand. I doubt your family and friends will support you, not after they find out what you've done. I don't care about the money, it's always been you." Everyone sat in shocked silence, gawking like goldfish. "Any of your bastards still have advice? Did I miss anything? No, I don't think so. Oh, and one more thing. Jack, you can shove your job up your ass, but I'll see you in court for involuntary dismissal. My job depends on a client having my wife. I guess the reason is simply this." With those words, I walked out. You could hear a pin drop. Shane followed me, as always. As we walked away, Shane grinned. "Good for you. I see you took to heart the advice to keep the plan to yourself." I couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, I guess I blew that idea." Shane gave a genuine laugh as we walked out of the building. "It's a good thing you stayed civilian. You would never have succeeded in the army. Anyway, let's go." Shane grabbed his backpack and set off at a pace up the coast. After a mile, I could barely keep up with him, and began to think that maybe this was a mistake. I heard him yell something from the front about physical torture being a great distraction from mental anguish. My burning muscles and lungs seemed to agree. The scenery was breathtaking, and Shane was good company. He switched from asking about me to hilarious stories from his time in the British Army. We spent a few hours circumnavigating the northern part of the island. Climbing along the coast, we headed for the high point in the center. I had barely caught my breath when Shane suggested that we jog back since it's all downhill. I could barely keep up with him, but I suspected he was slowing down to encourage me or torture me, depending on my point of view. We returned at noon, me panting in exhaustion and telling Shane that I'd considered myself in shape until today. He was almost out of breath, but was kind enough to tell me that I was quite fit and that it didn't make me feel too bad, since he was a physical fitness instructor in the troop. Staggering to my room, Lucy wasn't there, and I wondered if my wife was earning an extra fee. I showered and, finding myself very hungry, headed to the dining room to find some food, but again I was disappointed to find William and Lucy there. Shane was also there, hanging around in the background, and I wondered how he managed it. He looked fresh as a daisy and fully dressed in a suit. William began to speak with his usual airy confidence. "Mark, my dear friend, I feel we got off to the wrong start, and I want to apologize. I've never had such a problem with my connections before, and I certainly don't want to jeopardize your marriage." "Too late. You've already done that. I want to withdraw my request to spend tonight with your wife and increase the compensation." With these words, William handed me a piece of paper. I opened it and saw a check for £250,000. I stared at Lucy, who looked like she was crying, and I couldn't help myself. "You must have been really good to have earned that much, baby." Lucy's eyes flashed with anger. "That's not the point. We made a terrible mistake and we're trying to fix it. William was a perfect gentleman and is genuinely concerned about how you reacted." I laughed at that statement. "What is a perfect gentleman in your mind? Does he say thank you after he's done having you?" "No need to joke, Mark. This is just a miscalculation on our part. We miscalculated your reaction to what was happening. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for both of us. You should be grateful to Lucy for making the sacrifice to offer you and your children a better life." "Just a miscalculation." "Hardly. I made it clear what I thought of your plan, but you both went ahead anyway. You could have stopped everything at any time, but decided to stop only after you had had your fill of fun. Well, you miscalculated that little maneuver as well. With this one, I cut the check. I just saved you from becoming a whore, darling. Only the cheating part remains, but I don't think I can fix that." This time, her tears started immediately. I turned to Fellows. Why are you doing this? Control or the thrill of sleeping with another man's wife? Either way, it makes you a very sad bastard. Jesus, what are you, 48 years old and you're acting like a kid stealing toys just because you can? Don't you have anything more meaningful to focus on? William laughed in response. I run a multinational corporation and give millions to charity. I have a lot to focus on. According to the research I did last night, you inherited that corporation, and under your stewardship, it is shrinking. As far as charities go, attending gala dinners and fundraisers must be tough. When was the last time you did something on your own, got your hands dirty, and actually helped another person? I doubt you have it in you. You're so self-absorbed and too busy playing games with people's lives. Judging by the way you planned this weekend for everyone to know, it must be turning you on to humiliate others. Sorry, Lucy, but it wasn't just about wanting you. He had every board member's wife, so you are one of many. Why don't you, William, try growing up? Have a real relationship with someone, put some of your wealth to good use, and stop being a complete asshole. It was the first time I'd ever seen him stammer his words and look unsure of himself. I continued. Shane, you better get that piece of shit out of my face before I take a chance on you. I saw Shane hide a small smile before I told Fellows, I think it's time for us to retreat, sir, before your safety becomes an issue. Once they were gone, I grabbed a bite to eat and made my way down to the beach, trying to avoid the others. Just when I thought I was alone on the beach, I noticed Charlotte reading while lying in a hammock. If she had been beautiful before, she was truly dazzling now as she smiled. I approached her. I'm sorry about last night. Before I could continue, she replied, There was no need. I was sure you would accept the offer. If I had known, I would never have approached you. Your reaction is perfectly understandable, and your speech at breakfast was absolutely wonderful. I couldn't agree more. When you left, Lucy burst into tears, and I've never seen William look so embarrassed. I loved every minute of it. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that, considering what you're dealing with. I replied, Thank you. Okay. I'm even glad something is starting to clear up. I'm getting tired of being told it's nothing. You see, William has no idea what to do with you. He's never been turned down before, and he's not used to dealing with morality. Has he offered you more money before? Yes, just before I came down $250,000. Bloody idiot, I told him not to, but he's used to paying enough until he gets what he wants. He'll pay for it, both in business and personally. Communicating with Charlotte proved easy, and she listened attentively as I talked about my marriage and children. She was clearly intelligent and highly educated. She expressed surprise that Lucy had done this while seemingly in a happy marriage, suggesting that there had been some unhappiness or open marriage arrangement between us. I wondered, No, this is just an unexpected ambush. She seems to be completely enamored with this guy. He can have that effect on a woman. It's all very endearing, but the river isn't that deep, if you know what I mean. We talked some more, and I felt a little better. I think you really love her. Your reaction to the proposals and at breakfast must be breaking your heart. I shrugged. I'm sorry I was involved in that. It's not your fault. I just need to get through one more night and then maybe I can escape. She smiled again, and it was starting to get distracting. Well, maybe I can help with that. Everyone was surprised when I arrived for dinner. Lucy was no longer sitting next to William. Dinner was quite normal, although I ignored all of Lucy's attempts at small talk. When Lucy asked if I wanted to go to bed early, I smiled pleasantly and said I had other plans. She looked embarrassed, and that embarrassment increased when Charlotte came around the table and hugged me when I stood up. We walked out of the hall together. We walked down to the cabanas on the beach. The original plan was to just leave together and let Lucy try her own medicine. But Charlotte felt good in my arms, really good, and as we kissed, at least some of the frustration of the last 24 hours faded away. I thought about keeping my morals, my sense of right and wrong, but then I looked at her. I guess Lucy wanted me to become more flexible, and as far as I was concerned, our marriage vows had already been broken by Lucy. I had an outstanding night with Charlotte. It wasn't just her beauty. She had a serene sexuality. Every movement seemed so precise and perfectly calibrated. She truly was a master of her craft. Surprising myself, I didn't think about Lucy or feel guilty. The painful memory of Lucy with William easily removed any hint of remorse. Sailing from the island. I made good time. Boat, cab to the airport, and then the usual flight home. I picked up the kids and made the best of their weekend as best I could. I made up a vague story about their mom and I having a fight, but that we'd work things out, and was just about to offer dinner when Lucy walked in, dragging our heavy suitcase. The kids ran upstairs to get ready, shouting, "Hi, Mom!" Lucy smiled. "Dinner is a good idea. If you give me a few minutes, I'll get ready." "I'd rather you didn't, Lucy. Like you said, I don't know how much time I'll have with them, so I'd rather we go alone." Lucy. When I met William, I immediately felt a connection. He seemed so dashing, confident, strong, charming, almost like the heroes of old movies. It was strange that later, in Mark's presence, he was none of them. The flirting led to lunch and then dinner. It was exciting. It made me feel giddy. After dinner, he kissed me goodnight, and I almost melted, but I was determined not to cheat and told him so. William had talked about some of his relationships being open, and I wondered if Mark could go for it. When he offered to make the offer, I thought the money would justify it. Jack backed me up, and we started making plans for the weekend. The weekend started off brilliantly. I had a great time with Mark, and I almost gave up on the whole thing. If only I could. William said everything would be fine and to relax. Both he and Jack said that it was to be expected that Mark would reject the idea, but that they needed to give him time to calm down. Mark reacted very differently than we had expected and planned. The biggest shock was that he really did not look well. I wanted to run after him, but William assured me that everything would be fine. He had asked Charlotte to meet him, so when he didn't return, I assumed he had stayed with her. I was relieved, and after months of waiting, I was desperate to spend time with William. As soon as he kissed me, I knew I could make it work. He led me to his bedroom, and before I could remove my clothes, I was already excited with anticipation. William stood in front of me and undressed me as if I were the most delicate trophy. I felt so special. Despite his age, he was incredibly fit. I was not disappointed. As I reached for him, William pulled away and began kissing my entire body, kissing everywhere, taking his time. He gauged my reaction and responded, seemingly in sync with everything I wanted and needed. Finally, we both relaxed in each other's arms. I woke up in the middle of the night confused, believing I was sleeping with Mark, and shocked to find another man lying next to me. I felt guilty, wondering where Mark was and how he was feeling. I must have disturbed William as he woke up and kissed me, and my guilt was soon forgotten when he climbed on top of me again. In the morning, I was brushing my teeth when William moved up behind me. He seemed insatiable. We moved back to the bed, holding each other's hands. It was everything I had hoped for, and I was ecstatic. I kissed William and thanked him for a wonderful night. It felt natural to hold his hand as we walked down the stairs and into the dining room, and I looked forward to another night. I turned to look at Mark, and everything came crashing down. I had to swallow my panic as Mark exploded. This was not how it was supposed to go. It was clear that he hadn't slept with Charlotte. Even without that, I thought he was going to leave, but I hadn't expected such anger. What scared me the most was his cold fury. Mark was too logical about everything. He anticipated almost all of my practiced arguments. When they were made by me, backed up by William, they sounded much more convincing. But Mark trashed them all in 5 minutes, making them sound weak and pathetic even to me. I struggled to hold my ground, but I realized I was failing. After he left, I collapsed, sobbing hysterically. William looked unsure for the first time. Coming to my senses, I tried to find him, but couldn't. Then Jack and William suggested the idea of ending things by offering more money. When we offered Mark additional money later that day, I was amazed at how things turned out. William's presence had diminished so much that he really did seem small, insignificant. Before, his authority had been such that I believed everything he said, but now that authority was shattered beyond belief. He assured me we could have fun without destroying my marriage. That plan was falling apart, and I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Then I went into an irrational rage, assuming I'd stay on the island longer and have fun, but was surprised by Jack's calm but brutal response. "Don't be bloody stupid, Lucy. If you want to have the slightest chance of saving your marriage, ask for forgiveness. You'd better be honest and serious in what you say. He doesn't seem like a man who's willing to change his mind. Personally, I can't argue with anything he said at breakfast. I was even more shocked when Jack told William that they would never have what they used to have again. He went on to say that Mark is a decent guy and doesn't deserve any of the crap we've pulled, and William should take his advice and think about growing up. I was amazed that Mark was present at the evening dinner. I tried to talk to him, but he just ignored me. When he left with Charlotte, I was devastated. I was going to run after him, but what could I say? After all, I had effectively told him to do it and spent most of the trip justifying the meaningless sex. I felt angry and betrayed, and then I remembered that I had done this and more with Mark, but even worse was that it had all been pre-planned and was so public. I guess I deserved it. At least it might help us stay together if we both change. The plane ride back without Mark made me realize how much trouble my marriage was in because he managed to find a way to leave the island before we did. I never really talked to him properly after that, incident. The realization of my actions began to become apparent, and waves of guilt came over me. I reminded myself of the money. Who in their right mind would turn down that much? My constant tears turned into full-blown sobs bordering on hysteria that I couldn't control. Jack and Margaret became increasingly concerned about my well-being. When I got home, Mark was there but didn't want me to have dinner with him and the kids. I almost managed to hold it together until they left, and then I burst into tears again. Exclusion from the meal seemed to me an ominous prelude to my future life. Coming to my senses, I tried desperately to think of something to say when Mark returned. The problem was that everything sounded like something he'd already said, and I was too embarrassed to ask my mom or friends for advice. Mark. When we finally got home, the kids went straight to their bedrooms as usual, burrowing headfirst into their video games and phones. I stood looking at Lucy in the kitchen. She seemed completely unfamiliar to me. She almost whispered, "Can we talk? I mean, properly?" I shrugged, figuring we should figure it all out at some point, so why drag it out? "I'm sorry, Mark. I promise you it was just a one-time thing, and I'll be yours and just as faithful as I was before the weekend. I did it for the money. It could be life-changing for us as a family. I did it for us. You did it for you. We were fine, and money wasn't an issue. You couldn't wait to jump into his bed. You must have had a gourmet dinner and sex waiting for you. All in all, a good time was had by all. You're overreacting. It shouldn't mean anything. You really should skip the A phase, Lucy. It's bullshit, and you know it. This wasn't casual sex. It was a planned betrayal, arrogant, selfish, all the traits I hate, and I hate you very much right now. So you did the same thing to that whore." "No, I didn't. I got my revenge because nothing seems to get through to you. You couldn't pull your head out of your ass to see how it affected me. I never would have thought of it if I had a faithful wife. And I hope it hurt. Really hurt. Then you might have a small idea of how I felt. Only I didn't plan it ahead of time, and with everyone else's knowledge, making myself look like a complete idiot. Speaking of which, how long did your secret plan take? And was this your first time with him?" Her eyes widened at that, but then she seemed to realize that it was a sincere and reasonable question. "It was the first time we had lunch, and I knew he liked me. I think Jack and Margaret were probing me, asking if I was interested. The four of us had dinner, and for the first time in my marriage, I found myself aroused by another man. His confidence was intoxicating. I knew it was wrong and resisted as best I could. I managed not to go along with the affair. William then suggested the idea of asking you about the discovery of our relationship and what you thought about switching. We talked briefly about it one night, but it was clear that you wouldn't agree to it. Then he had the idea for this proposal, and I thought the money for you would justify it all. We were getting nervous as the trip approached, and he suggested inviting Charlotte to guarantee that you would agree. I didn't like the idea, but by then, I just wanted it to happen. I thought that even if you didn't exactly approve of it, we'd rebuild. Then you ruined all those ideas so effectively over breakfast, and I started to realize the consequences of what I'd done. Had it been worth it?" Lucy sighed. "No, of course not. I was so engrossed in him and listening to what he was saying. I never meant to hurt you." "Oh, then, Straight to phase D, unintentional pain. You enjoyed it. That was clear enough from the way you flew around during breakfast. Now you're just telling me what I need to hear. Sorry, the honest answer is yes, I enjoyed it. It was good, it wasn't bigger or better, it was just different. It was exciting, new, thrilling, and I was fascinated by him. He's very experienced and knows what he's doing, but this was a one-time thing. Please don't leave us and break up our family over a one-time thing. I found myself grinning crookedly. Funny, but that's exactly how I would describe what you've already done. Ruined our family over a one-time act. That's all on you, not me. You're right, it's all my fault. I'm sorry. I love you with all my heart. Well, not your whole heart. You gave some of it to him, and even if you say you didn't, your love still wasn't enough to keep me faithful. How can I trust you again? I was so trusting because it never occurred to me that you were capable of what you did. I guess I don't really know you. I can barely bring myself to look at you, let alone pretend it didn't happen. Lucy recoiled in shock. You can't say that. You love me. I know you do. I never thought I could lose you. I agree. You were only thinking about yourself and your ass, not me and the kids, and love sometimes isn't enough. I tried to calm down and move away from scoring points in the argument and anger. After a long pause, I continued. Look, Lucy, even if we stay together and just forget about it like you suggest, we would never be the same. You've destroyed the trust and bond of caring we had for each other. You do remember that more than anything, we cared about each other and the children. We didn't let the other person get hurt. I never expected you to hurt me. Mark, I love you. I made a huge mistake and I would do anything to take it all back. This can't mean we're getting a divorce. You ripped my heart out and threatened me to get what you wanted. That's no way to treat someone you really love. Lucy stared in silence, stunned, not knowing what else to say. We need to talk about the children. I think children are better off in broken homes than dysfunctional ones, so from that point of view, divorce is the best option. I agree that you will win custody, but don't try to forbid me from seeing them. It will be better for you, too. They listen to me. You're not very good at setting boundaries. I frowned at the irony of that comment. And they're already testing you. It would be better for both you and them if I stayed in their lives. Lucy shrugged her shoulders. Seriously, Lucy, whatever happens, don't stop me from seeing our kids. Don't alienate me. I'm not the bad guy. I'm good to them, and I love them to bits. You haven't seen how mad I get. I will fight you to the end, spend all our money on lawyers, and we will destroy each other in the process. She nodded. I would never do that. You're a great father, and they need you. They will want you to continue to take them on trips and take them to all the sports sections. I turned and looked at her, surprised at the first comment where I sensed she wasn't trying to manipulate me or justify her actions. Be careful, Lucy. You're dismissing phase D. Seriously, even though you know who I am, why would you do that? I can only think that deep down you wanted us to break up. God, never, Lucy said urgently. There's no excuse for it. I became selfish, convinced myself I could get something extra. I thought that somehow or other I could keep you. Why didn't you stop me that night and just leave? I couldn't breathe and I had to leave. Then it didn't seem to matter much anymore. The fact that you wanted another guy by any means meant I'd already lost you. That conversation killed us long before you got to his bed. It was probably over when you first started planning it. You spent weeks talking to him and preparing. Letting you go and not making you stop made it easier to end things. There was no going back. And that was the beginning of the end. The marriage was destroyed in less than 4 days. We divorced, thankfully, without any need for counseling. I don't think Lucy wanted to explain her actions. On the one hand, it's a shame. I was hoping someone qualified could show how misguided she was. One promise she did keep, and we ended up spending roughly equal amounts of time with the kids. She even admitted to them that it was all her fault without going into details. They were old enough to understand by now, and often decided for themselves where they wanted to stay. They were at the age where parents become glorified cab drivers and loan sharks. I'm biased, but I think they are great kids and handled the breakup very well. Children can be remarkably resilient. Under the terms of the divorce, Lucy could keep our house until the children reached adulthood and then sell or buy it back. But I still wanted that for the children, and it allowed them to attend the same school. Fortunately, the right decision paid off. By the time the kids were in college, real estate prices had skyrocketed. Lucy had to buy the share from me, and it became the best investment of my life. How could she afford it? Well, we kept the £250,000 and split it in the divorce. Just as with Charlotte, I couldn't hold myself to the moral high ground. What can I say? I am a practical man. Anyway, it seemed a small price to pay compared to the cost of marriage and what had been a happy life. I quit my job, was given compensation to avoid the infamous employment tribunal, and started my own web design business. Lucy kept making attempts to get us back together, but I just wasn't interested. So was it the right decision to end the relationship? It was messy, and there were certainly no winners, but the initial threats and repercussions didn't materialize. I wasn't going to forget or forgive that night, and there's something important about looking at yourself in the mirror and liking who you see there.